famous spots, but when you just look at being able to sit down and enjoy a game, I mean, they're both in my mind fantastic. But I absolutely love listening to Robert Ford. I love laying in the pool and listening to Robert Ford.
If you have extra time, if you can ever get your
This is down to the stretch. I think it really just comes down to outside of Jamal Shed, there was not a lot of people that could create penetration and force teams to collapse the defense and get you an open three look. And that's what Shed does so good. He's that true legit point guard, but he can take a game over in the clutch time and find a way to go win it for you. They just didn't have that without him out there. They played their butts off. They had heart.
yeah.
Guys made shots. Guys played the person who at the end of the game when you're down three, who you want to have the ball in the hand, literally can't stand up at that point. And I thought the Cougars had a couple decent looks, right? I didn't. I have no problem with the shots they took. I have no problem with the guys that took the shots. I want Emmanuel Sharp shooting the three, or I want LJ Cryer shooting that three in that situation. Sharp went for 30 against A&M. Cryer's one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. And it just sucks that it seems like every year when UH truly has a loaded team, it's come down to the injuries. 2 years ago, Sasser gets hurt early on in the season, and they make a run to the Elite Eight. Kind of an incomplete team with no outside shooting whatsoever. Year before that, it's Joseph that goes down with an injury. It's just been a yearly thing where the guys that you need to step up the most just get hurt at the worst times. And this team made it to win the Big 12 in its first season. Um, to do it in dominant fashion, be the best defensive team in the country, second straight year with the number one seed. And unfortunately, it's the second straight year where they're eliminated in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, and I think to back up your whole point about Shed not being there to penetrate, they only took, I think, 9 threes in that game. And that's, and just the problem is with modern basketball, if you can't shoot it all from the outside, it's not that you can't win, but you make it a lot more difficult to win. But the other point though is to kind of play off your point about being the number one seed and winning the conference. The problem with sports in general is just we focus way too much on ultimately who wins and who loses, and then we decide that, well, the team that didn't win, it's a failure. Well, there can only be one winner. So, and I think this year, I think you and I probably both agree that UConn looks like the team that's going to roll all the way through, at least judging by what they've been doing to their opponents so far in the tournament. Doesn't mean that, like, say, NC State or Alabama haven't had a very successful season. I mean, they've had terrific seasons to get to the Final Four, and Houston gets to the Sweet 16. They could have easily lost that game to A&M. They didn't. So I mean, and then there's going to be a lot of people that are gonna crack on on U of H for quote unquote underachieving, but that's college sports, is that anybody can win at any point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just underachieving as much as like you said, just luck of the draw. There can only be one champion. Um, I don't even want to say it's a bad matchup because I think they played Duke better than you could have ever imagined. If Shed is there and you hold Duke to that performance, you win that game, right? Like you feel confident about that, and so it was absolutely heartbreaking as a Cougar fan because this team just felt different, right? And there's still some chance that a guys like Shed and Cryer could come back next year, and that would be fantastic if they do because my heart just breaks for Jamal Shed. This guy's special, and he's been a huge part of taking this program to the next level. Not him specifically, but he is like part of the heart and soul of this team. He's one of those guys who took this team from a surprise going to the Final Four to now, again, almost we're at the verge of being a blue blood program in the country because we've just sustained a level of success over the past 6, 7, 8 years with different guys coming in and out, and Jamal Shed's kind of been the mainstay. So for him, this time it seemed like the opportunity to culminate in what's been to me, Scott. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a college Hall of Fame basketball career, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. And what's interesting, and I was gonna throw this at you, how much money do you think either of us would have made betting on no Big 12 teams getting to the Final Four? I mean,
Yeah.
it seemed ridiculous to think. We thought, hey, 2, 3 Big 12 teams getting into the Final Four is possible. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, and obviously Jamal Shed's going to be leaving anyway. So this is your opportunity, and you're rebuilding every year with NIL. You're building in a year with the transfer portal. So this is the opportunity to
Well,
say,
it's
hey,
not for
okay,
sure that he's leaving yet, right? Because of COVID, he could come back for one more year, and right now scouts for some reason have him as a late second round pick. So
Jamal Shed?
I know it's absolutely crazy to me. So if you're Tillman Fertitta, I think the aquarium downtown could use a new spokesperson for about $3 million, and maybe Jamal Shed stays one more year.
Maybe so, but even if he does stay, I would sit there and say that you're probably you want to make sure, and it's the same thing when you're arguing about the Texans, the Rockets, the Astros. Your point of view is what happens when this guy's out? What do we do? And so maybe, and this is a great opportunity to, maybe pick up a young high school kid who's, coming in as a freshman, especially Jamal Shed will come back, who can be that guy in the future.
No, I couldn't agree more because I think that was the Cougars' biggest weakness was, Jamal Shed basically had to play the whole game. You had no backup point guard. When Shed is out, you had maybe Arsenault early on in the season, but last year it was Mark who handled the ball handling when Shed or Sasser were out, and he was told in his draft analysis that he needs to be seen as a point guard full time for them to give him a first round look. So he goes to Arkansas, where he's going to be a full time point guard. God, Jake Myers. And then he goes to Arkansas, where he's going to be a full time point guard. Now you don't have your backup ball handler, and the makeup of this team completely changed. That is maybe the one fault of the coaching staff. I think is they didn't have a true plan for backup point guard this season after Arsenault went down. But other than that, it would be nice to get another guy in here that could handle the ball handling when Shed leaves, and someone maybe that Shed could work with to kind of hand the proverbial torch to say, hey, this is your program now. I need you to take good care of it. It's been great to me, and I'm going to give you a year or tutelage to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just watching that Jake Meyer slide. It kind of reminded me of that Willie Mays Hayes slide in spring training, where he didn't quite get to the bag.
Yeah, that
And
was,
the fielder's just like, come on.
that was a trip more than a slide. And I was just to say, last night was an unbelievable night. We had the no hitter, and I was about to say, like, does the no hitter heal everything? Astros were 2 outs in the ninth inning tonight with a 1-0 lead, and then your big guy Hader gives up a home run to a nobody, Schneider, and now the Astros are down to their final strike here in the ninth. But a tough opening series against the Yankees. I was at game 2. We had the no hitter last night. Tonight it looked like the Astros are back to their normal selves. Well, they are back to their normal selves of not scoring runs after scoring 10 yesterday. But at least they got a great Fromber outing. And my thought was, hey, if you get 8 innings out of Fromber, then you don't have to worry about the middle of the bullpen. But now the bullpen's a real problem right now, Scott.
Yeah, and I think I think a bigger problem is that this team has gotten ducks on the pond, and this night's a perfect example. They've gotten they've had 2 runners on at least in 3 or 4 innings, and the game is now over, and they're 1-5. And when you look at a total number of runs scored, I think we're just about dead even when runs scored and runs allowed, and we're 1-5. So I'm not worried about the Astros overall. I don't think they're going to be a last place team. I mean, there's just way too much talent. But when we came in, into the season, we're like, hey, starter gives you 5 innings. Who's pitching the 6th? I still don't think we don't have any closer to having an answer to that question. Nowhere closer. I think Montero maybe. I think Scott maybe. Mushinki in a certain situation, maybe. But right now, I just don't think, and all 3 of your big guns have struggled in one game or another, which is going to happen, but it just doesn't make you feel any better.
No, I mean, even at the game Friday, I was texting you. We left a small village on the base path. I think it was 10 or 11 runners they left on base. And it was, Altuve had 2 or 3 hard hit balls that were just smoked right at people. A couple diving catches, one by Soto, one by Verdugo. And next thing you know, 2 defensive errors, and it's a blowout. But yeah, there's some struggles early on in this team. And because of the runners left on base, there's some guys that I think are being exposed, and one that is really, really concerning to me is Jose Abreu. The problem we saw last year with him was he couldn't handle the high velocity pitchers anymore, right? If you sat 91, 92, he was okay, but those guys who throw 95, 96, he can't handle that. Well, now everybody throws 95, 96, and he's late. He is so fucking tardy on everything. And it makes me wonder, Scott, I posed this question to you the other day. Is there a chance Jose Abreu is maybe older than he actually is? Because this drop-off has been so sudden to me. This is not the player that he was in Chicago. It just seems to me like he lost bat speed so quickly there's no way his age is accurate to me. It's a common thing in Latin America to say guy's a couple years younger than he is, so that way it looks crazy when a 16-year-old's dropping bombs like that. What do you think the odds are that maybe Abreu's 2 years older than we thought?
Can you imagine him? Wait a minute, Jose, you're using an AARP card. I thought you were supposed to be 50 in order to use that. I mean, no, I mean he's a Cuban import, so there. Goodness knows. I mean, what kind of records you're dealing with, and I've always been in favor of an international draft for that reason, and I know it kind of negates um, an advantage the Astros have had over the years. They had their Venezuelan academy back in the '90s and the early aughts. And they've obviously signed guys like Altuve and guys like Fromber and guys like Christian Javier. Well, those guys were not highly scouted or drafted. So I don't think in an international draft they would have necessarily been drafted. So you still, you still can get an advantage by being able to scout those guys. But when you get an international draft, what happens is Major League Baseball brings all these guys in. We start doing physicals. We start, verifying birth certificates and things like that. And so it's going to be a lot harder for these guys to defraud Major League Baseball than it would be for them to defraud an agent or an individual team, you would think.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, there's a different scouting process that you have to go through. There's a different just situation that comes with being drafted than it does with a scout finding a guy and signing him and saying that, hey, like, I met his mom and dad and they showed me his birth certificate and he's 15 and he's hitting 450-foot homers already. But yeah, it's
well,
makes
and
it a
it
little
protects
tougher.
you. It protects you on the other end too, because I don't know if you remember the Adrian Beltre situation. And Adrian Beltre, he actually defrauded on the other end, and so he signed with the Dodgers actually before he was 16. And so then all of a sudden, we're okay. Are we going to punish the Dodgers? For not doing enough to verify, when the kid or whoever's representing the kid is trying to defraud the team. And that's, and so if you had Major League Baseball do it, then, hey, you defrauded Major League Baseball. There's nobody to punish in that instance except for the player or whoever's representing the player.
No, that makes an absolute ton of sense. But it is just something to think about as Jose Abreu continues to be like one for, I don't know.
Oh, he had a hit today.
Okay,
He had a hit today.
so two
Had
for
down the left. He actually pulled a ball.
okay, so 2 for 17 now on the season for Jose Abreu. Um, just
Well,
yeah,
and Jordan's numbers aren't good. Bregman's numbers aren't good. I would point out uh, and I was going to point out, and tonight's game is a perfect example. Jose Altuve in the bottom of the eighth hits a high fly ball right there where the wall is starting to jut back towards the opposing bullpen. I would say easily a foot or two to the left, and it's a home run in the Crawford boxes. Sunday, and you go back to Sunday, Hader gives up a bloop single over Jose Abreu, who I don't think he could catch a ball in a phone booth, much less anything that he has to move on. And then the guy steals second. You get a single from Soto, score a run. The bottom half of the inning, you get two runners on. You get Altuve hits a screamer down the third base line that gets turned into an out. Alvarez hits a looper that is 3 inches from landing on the line. That would have been a double, would have won you in the game. Then he hits a loud fly ball to deep center field, the only part of the ballpark where, it would not be a home run. So you just get a lot of these situations where a few inches here, a few feet hit there, and it's a different result. And it so happens the Astros have been on the wrong end of that every possible time this early in the season.
no, yeah, it's absolutely been a bit of a bad break at this point early on in the year, and it's just it's unbelievably frustrating. It is not what you want to see. Um, I don't know. It's it, uh, you got the Rangers coming up next. You got the Royals after that. Hopefully they can get on a roll, get on the road, as we've seen in the last couple of years when this team gets on the road. Hopefully they can get on a roll. But you
Well, and,
know,
and you also got to focus. You got to focus on what's going well at this point. The starting pitching has been fantastic, especially with Fromber coming back and bouncing back from a rough first start of the season. I mean, I'd like to see more out of Hunter Brown than 4 innings, but he did limit them to 1 run. So if you put up all of your starters' innings, I don't know. There's going to be too many clubs in baseball to have a better starting rotation through Game 6 than the Astros. The problem is just you have had an inability to score runs for whatever reason, and that middle of the bullpen's been bad. But when you look at the hitters, I would say all of your low-priced hitters are all playing really good baseball right now. Jake Myers is playing, except for that whatever we call that base running gaff there in the ninth inning.
he tripped.
Um, yeah, I mean, but I think as a hitter, he's been, about as good as I could hope. Chas McCormick is doing Chas McCormick things. Jeremy Pena has been great. Yair Diaz has 3 walks. I didn't think we would have 3 walks out of him until May. Plus, he has a 2 home run game, and the same game that he's catching a no hitter. So, I mean, the young guys that you want to see stuff out of, you're seeing stuff out of. The guys that are getting paid the big bucks, not so much. But I think, Altuve's hitting well, obviously, another home run tonight. But Bregman, Alvarez, Abreu are not giving you what you want. But I think we have enough faith that Bregman and Alvarez are going to eventually hit. So it's just a question of when. And Tucker's, obviously tonight lost a few men on base, but he's been good too overall. So overall, you got to say you like what you see. It's just been, day late, dollar short.
Yeah, I just this is what this team does, right? They score in bunches and then they play 1-0, 2-1 games. It's been the MO for years, right? When you have an unbelievably dominant bullpen, you win a good chunk of those 1-0 games. When you give up ninth inning home runs, you lose those 2-1 games. And so, they leave a lot of runners on base. They've left a lot of runners on base for the past 3-4 years. Let's hope this isn't the year it comes back to bite him in the ass. Because Bregman's a traditionally slow starter. Kyle Tucker's a traditionally slow starter. Jordan is a little, maybe a little worrisome to me, but he does have a track record that we feel okay. Abreu's worrisome to me because his trend is bad. His trend is not one that I like. And there's not an internal solution necessarily to play first base if Abreu's not the answer, right? Like, let's say the Astros come to terms with it and say, fuck it, we've got to DFA this guy. Is Singleton your everyday first baseman? No. He needs to go too. So now is it Cabbage? Because he was awful in spring training. Is it Caratini playing first? Did we bring up J.C. Correa to be the backup catcher because you traded away?
Motorfino, maybe.
Maybe Laperfino plays first base. I don't know, but realistically, you don't have like some hot prospect nipping at the heels to steal the job away, and that's what makes it so frustrating. Is the money is one thing, but it's like we have a lack of talent at that position in our organization's depth chart. And there's not a solution unless we go out and trade for somebody, or unless some rookie in AAA just goes balls to the wall this year and puts his name on the map. But there's nobody that is just knocking on the door besides Laperfino in his spring. But I see him as a guy more like a Marwin that can play 5, 6, 7 different positions than I do as an everyday first baseman. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right on that. To me, right now, the move I would make yesterday is, getting rid of Singleton. What purpose does he serve on this roster right now?
He doesn't. He's terrible. His defense is terrible.
Well, and even if you could sit there and say, yeah, well, maybe he's a hitter. I'm sorry, but with the way that Major League Baseball sets up their teams now with, 8 relievers, you've got 13 position players on a team. One of them's your backup catcher. That means you've got 3 position players. You cannot afford to have one that plays one spot.
Nope.
You just can't. And so, to me, if you were gonna say, that's where I would say Lodorfino would be a great ad. Bring up Cabbage, because at least Cabbage can play the outfield. At least Cabbage could be a pinch runner. I mean, what are we do? If Singleton gets on base late in the game, you're turning right around. You're pinch running for him.
Yeah.
So I mean,
yes, like Singleton has unbelievable power, right? Like he can hit it a far way. When he fucking hits it, it's not only that he strikes out at such a high rate, his whiff percentages are off the chart. He swings and misses an ungodly amount. Like his contact rate is so fucking low. It's unrosterable. I don't understand. Like I get that he's out of options. I get that. But you know what? Like that's not our fault. It's not something that we need to worry about. I guarantee you, if you let him go and someone else picks him up, this isn't going to be JD Martinez, right? Like this guy is 30 something years old at this point. He is not a young guy who's still trying to figure out Major League Baseball. He's a guy who had his chance, didn't take advantage of it, wanted to find a way back, did, but just isn't quite good enough. Like, let's just be honest. John Singleton isn't good enough to play at the major league level. He could rake in Mexico. He could rake in the Mexican League. He could rake in the Korean League. He could probably do well in Japan. He could probably put up decent numbers in AAA. But he's not a Major League Baseball player. He could go to the Atlantic League or he could go to the American Association and he could be a fan favorite and he can hit 20, 25 bombs a year. But that's it, right? Like that's what John Singleton is, and we gotta stop rostering at the major league level a guy who can only play first base, doesn't play well defensively, strikes out an ungodly amount, isn't fast. If he finds his way on base, you then have to pinch run for him, and he's taking up, as you said, one of 3 bench spots realistically after you take out the backup catcher.
Well, and I just did the math because there are 780 players in the big leagues right now. Half of those are pitchers. Would you say he is one of the best 500 position players in the world?
No.
Well, I mean, you're talking about there are 390 are at the big league level. Would he be an upper level AAA player?
I don't think so. When you break it down like that, like I guarantee you there are guys in the Japanese league. Again, we were talking about the world, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
I guarantee you when you bring all that stuff into it, he comes in somewhere at like 600.
Yeah, so, but here's the thing. How many professional baseball players are there in the world?
Probably like
so
12,
to me,
1,300 when you include the, independent leagues of the world, when you include Japan, when you include Korea, when you include
I'd say like maybe
Italy.
2,000.
Okay.
Maybe 2,000, right? So to sit there and say, hey, I'm the 500 or 600th best professional player in the world when there's like 2,000, that's not bad. I mean, I had the same thing, when my cousin came up for 1/3 of an inning with the Astros. He was a pretty damn good AAA pitcher, but just couldn't stick in the big leagues. Doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that you're just not quite that good. Give me a guy who can play 4 or 5 positions, or even just the 3 outfield positions. If you wanted to give me just a reserve outfielder, a guy who could play all 3 outfield spots, I would take that. Because here's your problem. Let's say Chas McCormick goes down. What's your backup plan?
I think Dubon is their backup plan.
Well, okay, so there goes your utility plan, your utility player. Who's your backup for him?
That's probably when you have to look at what's the kid, the shortstop slash center fielder, and
Oh, Pedro Leon.
plays Leone, or maybe that's when Cabbage gets the call, or maybe that probably La Perfido gets the call there.
But see, that's my point, is that that's where we were exactly at this point last season when Altuve goes down with a broken hand, and Dubon is playing second base every day for you. Did a damn good job. Wins a Gold Glove, primarily for his work at second base.
Right, but
But
then you're going to have
that's
Julks
great.
playing major time in left field.
Yeah,
Then you're going to have
exactly.
single. Even when Abreu went down last year, Singleton had to play every day, and the guy got exposed. But speaking of being good, but just maybe not quite good enough. The Rockets' win streak came to an end at 11. I was there on Sunday night for what was an absolute torch job by Luka Doncic. And then the Rockets fall short again tonight, just shy. But let's take it back to the Sunday night game quickly against the Mavericks. I don't want to, hate too much on what Ime Udoka has done this season. I think that the team has played much better defense, but the fact that this team played one-on-one defense on Luka Doncic for the entire game was an absolute fucking travesty. The only other team that played the guy one-on-one all year was the Hawks, and they gave up like 70-something points to him. There was literally no trap, no nothing. And we don't have a lockdown defender that's going to shut this guy out. Amen Thompson gets in early foul trouble. And Luka just played with the Rockets. Like, yeah, he made some great shots. He made some nice-looking threes. But at the end of the day, he did whatever the fuck he wanted to out there. And he took the Rockets out behind the woodshed and made us this bitch. Because
Yeah,
that was
he could have
rough.
scored 60. He could have scored 60 easily. I mean, they took the foot off the gas in the fourth quarter. When he did that underhanded shot from about 20 feet, I was just like, cancel the game. It's over. I mean, if he's going to be making shit like that, I don't even know what to say. I've seen Fred VanVleet make something similar to that where he was trying an alley oop and just kind of just threw it up and it went in. But I've never seen a shot that ridiculous in real basketball time. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I missed that one somehow. I was getting back to my seat after halftime, and I missed that shot. But my wife texted me. It was like, "Oh my god, unbelievable shot!" And of course I missed it. But it was an interesting game. Got into it with a Mavericks fan. We got into it's the wrong word, but words were had, and like there was a so for those who aren't from Houston, Minute Maid Park and the Rockets basketball arena are very, very close to each other. And the way the sports schedule lined up on Sunday, you could have done the Astros game at 1:05 and rolled that bad boy right on into the Rockets at 6 o'clock. And the gentleman in front of me did that. And he did it hard. And he was fucking hammered. And I'm sitting next to like a family of four that are like Mavericks fans, and I've got like the oldest one next to me, and then like maybe a 10-year-old kid, and then like mom and dad. And I don't know, have you ever seen the movie I Love You Man, where what's his face is the guy from I Love You Sarah Marshall is trying to find like a best friend, and it ends up being Paul Rudd. Oh no, Paul Rudd's trying
Okay.
to find a best friend, and it ends up being the guy from.
Yeah.
So there's at one point where he goes to the soccer game with Joe Latruglia, and he's like, "Let's go Galaxy! Let's go Galaxy!" Like that's essentially like what was sitting next to me. Like, let's go Mavericks! Let's go Mavericks! So like real loudly, the guy in front of us, who again hammered fucking drunk, starts like talking shit about this kid to his wife, but again very loud, so that way like the kid could hear about it. And he's like, I had to go to the fucking Yankees game. I had to go to the Astros game today, and I'm surrounded by Yankees fans. And now I'm at a Rockets game, and I'm surrounded by annoying ass Mavericks fans. I thought that was like a bitchy girl. I turned around, it's a 10-year-old. This kid's fucking annoying as shit, and like he's just going off. And then like the older brother who has been like cursing and talking like being inappropriate all game, then like chirps up and starts saying like, hey, you can't talk like that. That's my brother. And then, for whatever reason, Scott, I decided to step in and been like, hey, your argument would have more weight if you hadn't been cursing all game as well. and then like it kind of like the dad like changed the kid's seat and like stepped in and like yeah, it was interesting. Interesting way to end the first half.
Can we do a preliminary tip of a cap to somebody who can get completely sauced at a professional sporting event? Because with the prices that are going now, I mean, you got to throw down probably a good $100 in order to drink enough to get hammered. So that's dedication.
Yeah, no, I have to assume maybe like there was a stop at like maybe Ninfa's or something in between. Or you hit little Woodrows in between or something like that because this guy was litty.
Oh,
Lit.
there's a Papacitas down there, so I could see it. Yeah,
There's a lot of great
but even probably
establishments
you
down
can't you
there.
can't drink for cheap at Papacitas.
I mean, you can't drink for cheap anywhere but your own house. Other than like if you go to like, I don't know if you ever went there, but like my spot when I was working at my dad's Carrabba's was Cellar Bar. It was this
Okay.
is a sister property of Molly's Pub, right? Like
Oh yeah,
everybody
yeah,
went
yeah.
to Molly's. That place was packed, and then you'd pull into Cellar Bar, and they'd give you the remote to put whatever you wanted on TV. Like I literally knew all the bartenders by name. My bill was $20 no matter what I drank. Every time I went in there, they'd always have the Astros on for me. Like it was great, and all the other Jermopes are like shoulder to shoulder in Molly's Pub, and I'm sitting there talking to some 65-year-old alcoholic who's literally been there since like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But I'm sitting and I'm not standing. But that's kind of like the vibe, like that's what I'm looking for, and that's the cheap drinking. But other than that, like you're paying out the ass nowadays.
The worst we did. So I can't remember what exact date National Margarita Day was, but we went
Yeah,
out with some
yeah.
friends and we went by a Mexican food restaurant. And it's like, okay, this isn't happening. So we went to Red Robin,
Okay.
and they were selling margaritas for $4. That shit was lime flavored water.
You know what? I could have sent you to Don Pico's.
I
That's where
could,
you
well,
go.
but there was not, you couldn't get in. Like the only place you could get in into a Mexican food restaurant would be one that wouldn't have a liquor license, and that's kind of defeats the whole purpose. Um, but no, it was a shitty margarita, and we were actually talking about Casa Olay margaritas that are like $2, and I bet you those margaritas are better than what we had, because I was like, is there any alcohol in this thing? You know, I don't think so.
Dude,
But
when I was like 21 years old, Don Pico's, which is the Mexican restaurant that's across the street from what used to be like number 7 T box on Clear Lake Golf Course, right?
oh
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been there. Been there many times.
they have specific lunch special margaritas that are $1.25 each, and they were made with Everclear.
Oh,
And oh my
oh,
god, oh yeah. And so like we'd go have like 2 or 3 of those, and then like head on back to my pool, and just like continue with what would be a rowdy, fantastic day. And because that was like a bike ride from the house essentially. And so yeah, it was fantastic, and that's if you're looking for something good, that's always a good spot. Don
well, yeah. We've been there.
Picos.
We've been there.
I'm open for
No,
a
no,
sponsorship, Don Picos. You want to give us the
yeah.
money? I will continue to promote your fantastic, strong ass lunch margaritas.
I remember my cousin. We always have a white elephant gift exchange, and so she brought in a bottle of Everclear that was 80% consumed, and that was her white elephant gift. Because there's always that story of, okay, how is the other 80% consumed? I mean, there's got to be stories there. And we have a little sign in our house that Janet bought, and it just says alcohol, because no great story ever started with somebody eating a salad.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Scott, you mentioned tip of the cap. Let's just take it that direction as we salute the real men of genius, our tips of cap. Who you got for us this week, Scott?
In a serious note, our building principal, Steve Fleming, he just announced that he is retiring effectively before the start of the next school year. And he's just a guy. He's been in the business 34 years. A great guy. I started with him. He was still a teacher way back then. But pulled my career out of the gutter. don't have any problem admitting that. But just a really good guy is always always asking how you're doing, how's your family doing, is really interested in what's going on, and just a really good guy. And he's gonna be missed, and there's gonna be a lot of anxiety as to who's gonna take his spot. But I wanted to tip my cap to him, and he has done it well, done it a long time, and one of the few good ones leaving the business.
Yeah, it's incredible the difference between good and even mediocre administration when it comes to a school's campus, right? What it does for the other teachers and students, and I know my wife, her first 2 or 3 years in teaching, she didn't really have good principals, and they changed every single year. And then the last 2 or 3 years, that changed for her, and I think that's been a godsend in her career to have good administration. So, Scott, I tip my cap to your tip of the cap. That's a great one to have. And I wish nothing but a great retirement to your principal. Hopefully, he gets to play a lot of golf.
I don't know if he's much of a golfer, Tim, but I told him
Time to start.
because I told him, and he's my dad trained him as a referee, and so he's known my father for years. And I flat out told him, I said, whatever fun you can have it now. Because my parents got to travel the world. They've been to, just about every continent except for Antarctica.
Were they waiting?
And well, no, my parents, but I'm saying,
why are they not? Why haven't they gone yet? What are they waiting for at Antarctica?
Traveling's harder.
Great penguins.
Traveling's harder at their age. We went on a cruise this summer, and it was a struggle. So that's what I told them. I says, while you're physically able, have all the fun you can have. Because there's going to be some day when it's not possible.
Yeah, play that top 100 courses list. Find it, play it, get your ass out there. But no, I wish a happy retirement to your principal. I kind of a tough decision for me this week, Scott, because 2 weeks ago, or last week rather, I gave the tip of the cap to my wife. And it's we don't like to do double tips to the same person. I don't want to look like that guy who's just keeps kissing his wife's ass, but at the same time, she set me up with an Astros game on Friday night, Rockets game on Saturday. She went with me to the Goodwill over by Miller's Cafe on Saturday, and I found a $150 putter, brand new, that I got for $5. So you know what? I'm gonna go back-to-back weeks with my wife Haley. She planned us a wonderful, as always, Easter weekend. Packed the whole car up because she likes the way that she does it. And you know what? Okay, more power to you. She drove us down there while I napped. She drove us, the first half of the drive back up, and we left at 5 a.m. on Monday morning. So, real trooper. She earns a double straight tip of the cap for 2 straight weeks in a row.
Hey, if she's earned it, she's earned it.
That's what I feel like. I don't want to be that guy, but at the same time, she's killing it out there. Well,
right,
Scott,
here we go,
I think it's time for our favorite part of the week. We got a little more pizzazz this week, so we'll see what the fans think. As you can see here, these people have offended Tim and Scott and need to be recognized as the Scumbags of the week. Scott, who do you have as a Scumbag of the week this week?
It pains me to do this, but I'm going to have to nominate myself here, Tim.
I second that nomination, Scott.
Let me set this up. Tim and I, as you probably listened to the last show, we'd set up to play on Saturday, and I tried to set it up, and I even bumped it back from your original time. I bumped it down to about 11:15 because I thought, well, we're gonna do a rehearsal for the Easter Vigil. It can't take more than an hour and a half, so I was there for 3 hours, Tim.
Yeah, you should have asked
me. I was
there
from 9 a.m. I was there from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. to noon. And then I thought, oh, we can still catch it in 9 holes. Who's really going to be teeing off a golf course in the middle of the afternoon? Well, Tim gets there before I do, and they are plumb out of tee times, which, missed the opportunity to play golf with Tim. But also, doubly so, I'll say that after going through the Easter Vigil service, makes me feel like a double heel for even being angry in the moment at them, because it is a beautiful ceremony, and I was glad to be a part of it. It's just something where I needed to do a better job of planning, and if I had, we could have at least gotten in 9 holes, and I could have set up a tight tee time around 12:30. But
I do
sadly,
have to
I
wonder,
didn't do that.
Scott. I do have to wonder, what would have happened if you just walked out at 10:30? Hey guys, see you back again at 5. It's been great. Thanks for the rehearsal.
Yeah, I guess that's always an option.
I mean, like,
it's always an option.
let's be like realistically, you were a volunteer, right? Like you were not being
No.
paid to be there. They asked for your help. You said okay. Then they came with a second ask, which was the rehearsal. Correct. The original plan was
It's actually a third ask, but
right.
we'll
So
ignore that.
now let's say, hey, I got a tea time. I will see you guys tonight. What what? Worst case scenario, they don't ask you anymore, and then you don't have to go to the 5-hour mass that is the
Yeah.
Easter Vigil. We made the
I feel-
mistake one time. Like one of our parents' friends were like, "Hey, let's go to Easter mass tonight and get it out of the way." And they thought it was like Christmas Eve, Scott. They thought it was like that one that's
Nope.
the same mass, and you just
No.
here we are in gospel number 9,